in this panel discussion, we are basically going to take some challenge on the issues in scholarly communication, and the goal of the panel discussion is to highlight some of the key issues and stimulate discussion on possible solutions to this emerging issue. And one of the main topic of discussion will be the issue of intellectual property rights. And another part of this panel discussion is to be discussed is the practice of publishers in escalation of prices and not paying authors without any payment to the authors. That is another part of our panel discussion. And third one is to copyright versus copyleft, and that will forming part of this panel discussion. And another important issue is also that is becoming more popular in this particular publishing domain, that is implications of the artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence as well as copyright, copyleft, and emerging trend of the impositions of the government, one subscription, one nation. One nation should have one subscription. That will be the forming part of this panel discussion also. So we are going to start in this particular session. Will be discussed on the emerging issues on copyright, copyleft, escalation of prices, artificial intelligence, one nation, one subscription, and overall the panel discussion on the issues of scholarly communication is expected to be the thought-provoking, and it will be interesting also. I think all of us are waiting for this particular session. So I am inviting Professor Chakraborty to come to the dais. So this is very, very interesting and emerging session on the issue that is the issues in scholarly communication.
Thank you, Professor Paul. So we have 6 speakers here on this panel discussion. Well, 5 speakers. Oh, yeah, 6. No, I'm not a speaker. I'm supposed to moderate, right? Yeah. So I'm supposed to moderate. So there are 5 speakers, and I won't say much because I'm supposed to moderate. So I'm not supposed to take a long time to give speech here. So Professor Prasad, Professor Mary K Shenk, and Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay, Dr. Saswata Ghosh, Professor Narayan Chandra Ghosh. So we have 5 speakers here. Each of them initially will take 6 to 7 minutes, maybe 5 to 6 minutes in the first round, and then we'll take some questions from the audience, and then the panelists will respond to those questions. So all these things actually we have to finish by in 1 hour. Okay, so I'll be strict in maintaining time, and so let's start with the issues are already, I think they are circulated, and Professor Paul also reiterated some of the issues which we have outlined here. Mainly the issues, I mean, when we say scholarly communication, mainly we speak about the forms of dissemination that we currently have. Different forms of dissemination of our research work that we currently have, mostly in terms of journal publications, and also sometimes we write books by publishers, and there are a lot of issues involved there. And particularly one issue has been raised, that is about the property rights, and the second issue is that which is related to property rights. Basically it's the copyright issue and all. And second is because of the growth in artificial intelligence, then how is it going to change the scholarly communication or different forms of scholarly communication? How are they going to change in future? And there are a lot of, in fact, ethical issues around. Ethical issues in terms of, the kind of journals which are being published and listed, and people get published in those journals, how we should view those journals, and, those who are actually trying to get published in better rated journals, and are they victimized or what? Because quite often actually we are really aggrieved by that, and our students are also aggrieved that when we push them to publish in good journals, and they say that no, I mean, somebody got 5 articles and in good journal I have only 1. So in the selection committee, they will look at the number of articles, not the quality of the journal. So all these issues in fact affect us as research guides, as scholars, and also our research students. So with these few words, let us start with Professor Prasad, and so 5 to 6 minutes in the first round, Professor Prasad. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chakraborty. I think I would be starting with copyright laws, because that's my favorite. I think I keep on beating on it. Okay. Firstly, the copyright laws are completely unjustified, and with my 70 years of age, I realized that no law is made without taking bribes. Okay, completely they favor the industry, the copyright laws, and they own the copyright, okay, though they do not fund the copyright. I think that is the crux of the open access movement. Here I would like to mention a couple of quotations. One is by the German dictator Bismarck, who used to say that, in Germany, most favorite food is sausages. And sausages normally those days are made out of all the thrown away stuff from beef and other things. And if people really, if they know what goes into sausages, nobody would eat it. That's why he used to say, people should not know how sausages and laws are made, because many of the laws are made, okay, by taking bribes from the industry or business community and doing that. Then another leading thing, of course, one of my favorite authors, that is Mark Twain. He says, we have the best senators in the world money can buy. Okay, of course, he always has a great punch in that. So all this shows why copyright laws favor the industry, publishing industry, not the authors or the scientific community or the end users. The worst part of it, nowadays, practically they don't want to spend on the typeist. They ask the author, this much left margin, right margin you have to leave, this is the font, this is the line spacing. And sometimes, for example, you take the program, when it was published by ASLIP, it was a very good journal. Nowadays, the other guy, who is that, Emerald, took over, full of spelling mistakes, English mistakes, everything. If you can't read some of the articles because full of mistakes, it doesn't convey anything sometimes. Because they don't want to spend on some editors who take care of the language. So on the whole, unless we break the backbone of the commercial publishing industry, I think the open science or whatever open research, all this is not be realized. That is my take.
Thank you, Professor Prasad. In fact, you could continue for 1 or 2 minutes. But anyway, we'll come back. Okay, we'll come back with more questions. So that when it comes to this copyright and all, usually the economists have something to say on that, because when economists look at things as commodities, so the papers are also commodities. So that way, in fact, they are being bought and sold. Now the question is that who is going to get the profit out of that? So it's bought and sold, definitely. As Professor Prasad said, that it's just publishing industry, they profit from that. So maybe we should separate out these two things, that whether we should have the papers which are in the nature of commodities or not. If they're commodities, then who is going to profit from that? So as we know that currently the publishers profit from them. Now, I'll now turn to Mary. Mary is an anthropologist, as you know, and she probably, and also, you know, coming from US, she may have a very different perspective on this issue, not just on copyright issue, but on other issues of scholarly communication. Mary.
Okay. So far, I have a couple of things I think I could say. And one is this, so in the kind of university where I am in the US, there is a major stress. They like more publications, but they're very interested in that you publish in good journals, right? And so we are being increasingly urged to publish in open access journals, but of course, publishing in open access journals can be quite expensive to do. If you are from a very small university and you really have no money, then they may forgive you. You write a thing saying, I have no money, they may allow you to publish. But if you come from a good university in the US, they will not assume that you have no money. But what will happen is, my colleagues and I, we have to come up with maybe sometimes $2,000 or $3,000. And it's not a huge sum of money, but for one paper, and then the next paper, and the next paper, you suddenly, your small amounts that you have money, but it will go. And so we have to internally discuss if we want to publish in open access journal or not, for practical purposes. If we want to publish in an open access journal, maybe we can come up with the money. But we have to decide which papers we really want in the open access journal, because we don't have enough money to publish all of them there. And so what we do is we have to strategically think which ones will be better in open access, where you'll get more citations from that, and which ones you should put instead in a good journal that is from your field, that people will still see it and they'll still cite it in that other journal. So it's a kind of it's a strange situation, and in fact in some cases what we found is that we are making our decisions about where to submit almost entirely based on this reasoning. But it's also true, if you publish in an open access journal, you will get more citations, or you will get more people viewing it at least, and that often means more citations. But some of my colleagues instead, they like to publish in open access, but they can't always afford to do that. So instead, they are very, very motivated. In their website, they put the non-final version of all their papers, right? They take the one that is not copyrighted, the final draft that they submitted that was accepted, and they put instead on their website. So for some of my colleagues, you can get every single one of their papers like this, not in its final version, but you can get it. So sometimes they are contributing in this way because it's the option that they can always take. One thing I want to say, I don't know what it's like in India, but in the US, in many universities, if you publish in a very famous journal, then your university may help you pay the open access fees. But if you publish in an ordinary open access journal, then they won't give you anything very much. So then you have to somehow ask your head of department for a little bit, ask the dean for a little bit, have some own funds that you saved from something for a little bit, and then it becomes difficult. Or if you have a grant, you can put some money for open access publishing in the grant. But unless it is a very big grant, eventually you may need that money for something else. Or maybe you can get 2 papers or 3 papers out of that. After that, you don't have enough. So I think I see a lot of my colleagues like myself stuck in the middle of this. We would like to publish in open access for practical and ideological reasons, but it's difficult to always come up with the money to do that. And it's a continuing concern.
Thank you. You see that open access is another model where actually you are the author is subsidizing the consumer, right? So otherwise, if it is, you know, this, you read the paper for a payment, you get the paper for a payment, then the user actually is paying. But in case of open access journals, the author actually upfront, author has to pay a huge amount of money. So in a sense, this is a very peculiar model where you are producing the product and then you are subsidizing the consumers hugely. Now this is very peculiar kind of market. I don't think that in economics textbooks we have ever come across that kind of market. Anyway, so it's absurd, but okay, so we'll continue. Now I'll turn to Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay, and as you know that he's an expert on very, you know, the frontier technological things in the library science. So maybe he'll have a different take on that.
Hello. So let me take the clue from Professor ARD Prasad and Madam. Clue 1 says that copyright is neither author friendly, who writes the paper, nor reader friendly, who reads the paper. It's only publisher friendly. And I am giving you some data. The business of science communication. We don't have any idea. Do we know that what we write in the form of science communication? Science, I don't mean only pure science and technology, including all kind of, you know, scientific communication, including social science, arts, humanities. The annual size is $40 billion per annum. The business they are making out of, we burn our midnight oil, we work hard in the field, in the lab, and they get profit. Only 5 publishers share the lion's share of the profit. Elsevier, Springer Nature, Chapman, and this particular group, the third one, fourth one I forgot. But Elsevier earns the 16% of the profit. And have you ever heard there is a Elsevier chair professor in any of the university of the world? Have you ever heard Elsevier donated a single paisa for any large-scale science project like LHC or Human Genome Project or in any social science? No. They do not give a single paisa back. So what they are doing this kind of obscene amount of profit, have you ever thought of it? You search internet, Elsevier Arms Trade Fair. Every year in London, in open daylight, they conduct Arms Trade Fair. They are taking bullet bandage principle in economics. First I will sell you bullet, you fight with each other, then I will sell you bandage also. First they published Journal of Clinical Injury, and on the other hand, invest in landmines, which alone is responsible for the 65% of the physical injuries. Peculiar is peculiar. You know, infinity peculiarities are there. So that is one business part. Now second part, I would beg to differ what Madam presented here. Maybe the APC charge is related with, you know, the high impact factor journal. But if you search DOAJ, 73% of the open access journals are non-APC journal. We, the faculty member, researcher, people associated with science and technology should promote article level metrics, not the journal level metrics. Gone are the days where your paper is valuable depending on the destination it is having, like the journal impact factor. And if your paper is good, anywhere you publish, your article level citation, different kind of alternative metrics will increase. So that we need to break that mental block of the scientists, researcher, contributors. Because if we make them convinced that article level metrics is basically the in thing in place of the journal level metrics, then anywhere you are publishing, your paper is a good paper, it will attract attention. So that is one thing. And I will end in the first round with a note of positivism. What is that positivism? If you see the entire history of science publication right from the 1665, the first scholarly journal appeared in 1665, published by the Royal Society of Philosophy, Journal dos Cavans, in French language. And this is almost a 450 years of history. Open access is only 20-year-old. How can you expect that a 20-year-old boy will fight with a 500 years old established system? It will take time, first of all. Second is that, in this particular 500 years history, it was started by universities, by the learned societies. Then commercial shocks came like Elsevier, Emerald and others. This is the situation now. Good thing is that universities are fighting back. If you see the big project in open access, DOAJ by Lund University, Open Door by University of Nottingham, ROAR, Registry of Open Access Repository by University of Southampton, Base Search Engine developed by a group of librarians from University of Bielefeld. So it's a large-scale open search engine for all kind of open access, gold path and green path. And we have another opportunity in open access. It's not necessarily that you always need to choose the gold path of open access, that is open access journal. You can always publish in commercial journal, and you are legally entitled to upload your postprint version of the paper or preprint version of the paper in any of the archive. And CRN came up with a very, very attractive kind of postprint publication system. They developed open access repository and named it after a librarian. The system is called zenedo.org, and the name came from Zenedotas, the first metadata librarian of the historical Alexandria library. So with this positive note, I am ending the round one, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Mukhopadhyay. So, yes, indeed, it's a positive note, and let's look for other alternatives. But before we go to those more and more positive things, let's listen to Dr. Saswata Ghosh, who is often aggrieved about the entire review process of these journal articles. Because why is it that, it's such a skewed system where, one reviewer actually gets this flood of papers to review, and one after another, no payment, no incentive, but still they manage to get it. So that again goes against any kind of business model, that now you are getting free service from us, and we do it. So why do we do it? Saswata?
Thank you. This is really very, very interesting and disappointing as well. Once you completed actually review of any of the paper you receive from any of the good journal or something, with a good impact factor journal, and you give it in the Pavlon, and then it is like flooding. Some kind of flood has occurred in your email box, and you are regularly actually getting from Elsevier, from Cambridge, from this, that, X, Y, Z, n number of actually review. As if we do not have any other job, and only we have to do the reviews. And for that, we will not get a single penny. And this will be treated as our contribution to the science. Contribution. And from our contribution, this Elsevier and Springer Nature and Routledge will make that Dr. Mukhopadhyay has actually given the figure 40 billion dollar per year. What kind of system it is? Is it a system? And why should we then review one paper very seriously? And after that, when you will be submitting a paper to those journals, your APC won't be waived off. I am a panelist reviewer of Lancet Global Health. And if I want to submit a paper to Lancet Global Health, and if it is accepted, I have to pay $5,000, my 3 months salary actually. And there is, and we as a small actually institution and do not get that kind of large scale actually projects, so that we can have actually grant for the publication. That nowadays what I have seen that big universities and big institutions like I am just giving one example, International Institute for Propulsion Sciences, IIPS Mumbai. In their project they have a publication grant, and from that they are actually publishing in BMC Public Health, BMC that, BMC blah, BMC blah blah blah. I mean BMC has public health, women's health, pregnancy and childbirth, XYZ, so on and so forth. I mean unlimited BMC actually. And every time the APC is $2,450, which is also my more than 1 month of my salary. I mean, how we'll publish? Our only way is to go for this non-APC kind of thing, and that takes an up, which I have seen particularly of this after COVID, that they are increasingly decline your paper for the first review, and they are insisting you to send your paper to those open access journal which has APC. So I actually raised it for the panelists to actually.
Thank you, Shashwat. So you see that this is, I mean, when we grew up, our teachers published only in economic and political weekly. And they were great scholars, great scholars. Yesterday you saw Professor Amir Kumar Bagchi. They are great scholars. In terms of journal articles, yes, he did publish some of the well-known international journals as well. But he is known for his books and great works in economic history. I can give you n number of policy-oriented economists, well-known economists working in India. Their most of the publications are in economic and political weekly. So scholarly communication, luckily, in this part of the world, has not gone to that extreme which Mary actually spoke about. So it's a good luck for us that still ours, at least in social sciences, our scholarly communication is not that kind of, regimented kind of communication. It's still flexible that way. If it is a good paper, people talk about that, and it's being it is circulated among the scholars, referred to, and sometimes even the policymakers take note of that. It's a slightly different kind of world that we live in here in India. So if Professor Durga Sankar Rath has something to say, something related to this or something else.
Sir, as I am given the opportunity by chance here in absence of some other of my colleagues, anyhow, in this issue, what I want to say that first of all, this both way exploitation means public funded system, everything we invest public money only for subscription also, and for experimentation also, in research also, and then again for publishing article processing charges we have to pay, for subscription of articles again we have to pay. This exploitation is unwanted. That is first of all, everybody agreed with it. But why this exploitation is, why people will be forced to publish? Publish or perish phenomena was there at a time, but most of the cases I found that out of some compulsion people get published, and this particular situation is being exploited by the publishing industry. And in the same vein, I want to say the other issues also, like first of all subscription, 1 point subscription for each country, like China, they subscribe all over the country, one single subscription agency. They will subscribe for all the libraries of their country. For IITs, we have one consortia. For CSIR labs, we have different consortia. We have same journals are we are getting at Jadavpur University, IICB campus, at Cultivation of Science. Why that also would prevail? That means we ourselves are exposing ourselves to get exploited. That is another thing. What education is a commodity, research output also has become a commodity because of this GATT and all these things. We know it very well. But we educators as well as the researchers also are providing opportunities to get ourselves exploited. That was is my submission.
Thank you. So it's a kind of collective what should I say, collective bad, in the sense that not collective good, it's a collective bad. We are being exploited collectively. Okay, so next speaker is Professor Narayan Chandra Ghosh, and so we'd like to hear from Professor Ghosh.
Thank you, sir. Respected panelists and dear friends. See, the issue is very pertinent, and it's a matter of hot discussion in the academic area. Because day by day, being librarian, I have noticed that we have been, fighting for the budgets due to the very recent trend. We budgeted in the month of February or March last year. We projected the budget, and then the conversion rate of dollar, euro, and pound invariably it was almost 10 rupees lesser than today what we are paying in actuals. So it's the kind of situation we are facing when we are subscribing the journals. So now the question is, why we are paying so much of money to subscribe those journals? As already discussed, different panelists, I am not repeating that, the commercial publishers, they jumped into this business after a very, very, after almost, 300 years of the publication history, you will find they have in existence last 50 years, maybe 60 years or 100 years, max to max. But now we are talking about the commercial organizations. I am sharing the experience of ACS, American Chemical Society, one of the very learned educational society in world. You all are aware about ACS. If you just have a look the price list of the ACS journals, it's huge and skyrocketing. Even sometimes you will be surprised whether it is comparable to the Elsevier Science Direct publications. And many of the institutions in India, they are really, very hard for them to subscribe it for their researcher. If you even consider some other societies, they are also like tetrahedron asymmetry, tetrahedron lattice. These three combined journals cost more than 40,000 USD. Okay? This is the kind of subscription prices we the libraries are paying. Now thing is that, who are the stakeholders as far as the academic literature is concerned? One is the content creator, that means our researchers, our academicians. Second is the publisher. And third, of course, the authority, the government. As sometimes back, Dr. Roth was mentioning, Professor Roth was mentioning about ONOS. Like that, in Germany, in European countries, we know about Plan A's and all those things and different consortia models. Only librarians, brought it to the society to, for better bargaining, negotiation with the publisher and to come down the prices. So let us have a try for ONOS. I'm not going to talk about in detail about that. This time they tried hard to introduce it, but finally the ministry communicated that this time they are maintaining the status quo. So let institute, take their own decision, and accordingly we are going ahead. Next year I don't know what will happen and what kind of results it will fetch to us. Now the thing is that as I was discussing about the mindset of the stakeholders, we need to change, like the authors and the government also. Forget about the publishers. As sometimes back Professor Ghosh mentioned that they are putting whole lot of effort as reviewer, as the member of the editorial board, and spending lot of time, sparing their valuable time for the cause of the academic development without getting a single penny. Even sometimes they need to pay for any literature they are looking for from the same publisher. So that kind of services they are offering at the cost of what? For the twice or thrice, profit margin. Like sometimes back, Professor Mukhopadhyay, I heard that he mentioned that what kind of percentage of profit the commercial publishers are having, in this industry. That's a much more lucrative than any other industry, Now the mindset we have to change. First thing, if you ask anybody, we are discussing about research data. Authors are not ready to share their data they have collected for their own research, even it's a black data according to Professor Prasad. Underutilized, unused, but this is my data, the possessiveness. That kind of mindset we haven't yet, come across. Second, my publication is, what is the impact factor and all those things, we always keep it in mind. So they will never go to publish it as a first hand in the institutional repository of their own where they, are working. But if you go back to the history in 98, if I can remember properly, then Paul Ginsberg, one of the very renowned physicists, he studied with the archive.org. And where the preprint copies of all the publications, mainly on physics, mathematics, computer science, later on added, and chemistry, they put the preprint copies of those manuscripts so that the peer groups, they will evaluate there, they will pass their comments, they will review it automatically, and then finally it will get accepted. They don't mind. And they never thought of that someone else will copy it and publish it somewhere else, so I lose my credibility. They never thought of it. But we never, establish such archive, don't even bother to publish it in our own archive. Anyway, we have to change our mindset. On one more issue, sir, just 1 minute. That's the mindset of the authority. So we all are associated with some kind of academic institutions. When in our, of course, we aspire, after some day we will get some appreciation from our authority. So that is career promotion, some kind of activities there. Of course, you will find there the form itself, the authority itself is saying how many publications you have, what is the impact factor of those journals, how many citations you have received, if not asked, I don't know. So these are the different questions they impose. So of course, as incumbent, I am forced to publish in that kind of journal. Even I don't mind if I am forced to pay 5,000 of USD as APC charges to Elsevier or Springer, because I need some career progression in my career, nothing else. So we need to change at government level, authority level also. Thank you, sir.
We are at the end of the first round of presentations, and the panelists have presented the views to initiate discussion. So now we'll take a few questions from the audience, and then again we'll go back to the panelists. Questions?
Actually, the publishing in a good quality open access journal, definitely it will depend on your bargaining power, the researcher's bargaining power. So that bargain power, in that sense, once you are producing a good research work you have done, and after that you are thinking where to publish. So you have some preset mind that I have to publish in that level journals, high quality journals. At that point of time, how the researchers are thinking, how first they are thinking that what will be the APC charge, and if he like to or she like to publish in the good quality high impact factor journals and open access mode. So Elsevier, Springer, all them are providing such provision for to put it into open access form. But first you have to apply for waiving. You have to bargain to the publisher whether it will be, the charge may be decreased or not. That is the first bargain. Second bargain is to apply for a fund to your authority either or to the project funding authorities. Whether to you can pay that amount APC charge from the project fund, or any authority can be paid for that. So that is the second. Third point is to require a required fund. If it is those options are exhausted, not available, then you have to require some fund from project fund or somewhere else. Otherwise, you have to pay by yourself. So that is the last resort. But my question is, once you are basically you are becoming, as Professor Roth told, that you are becoming gradually, the researcher's outcome will be frustrating in that sense. The researcher will become more and more, they are getting as a commodity to the publishers. So that is better to say, a publisher is thinking to the researchers, entire researcher community as a commodity. Because their business will depend on the researchers' bargain. If they bargain and decrease the amount, then publisher's income or profit will be increased. So publisher's profit will depend on the bargain power of the researcher, otherwise they have to pay. So that is true. And thing is that publishers are gradually becoming more and more escalation of prices of the journals they are putting into the system. And ultimately, my question is that what is the solution for these particular provisions? As per the discussion of Dr. Ghosh has clearly mentioned that the authority is asking for high impact factor journals. Authority is asking for how many Pavlon entries are there as a reviewer that will be credited to you. So authority is thinking in that line, publisher is thinking in different line. So what is the solution? What will be the resolution from the researcher's point of view?
Thank you, Professor Pal. So we'll take a few more questions or comments. Questions. Not long comments, but questions. Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. When talking about this publishing models, where either we have to pay the APCs to make the articles freely available, or else the consumers have to pay the charges. So, is there any alternative model? Say, I'm not talking about this is an alternative model, but it's a kind of a radicalized model. We know that the use of Sci-Hub. But now we have the Sci-Hubs are mostly been banned in academic fields, that when you are, after 2021, the articles have been published, they are not available now. And we know that about the kind of cat and mouse game they have during this changing of domains every time, and then we search. So definitely it's a kind of, I presume that it's a kind of radicalized attempt that to free the knowledge for everyone. Like, because I know that they are basically hacking the algorithms and making it possible for us. So do you think that this will be a kind of, say, this is not a legal way, I know, because I can remember one incident. I think a case has been lodged in Delhi High Court, where some students were actually making photocopies just opposite to the Delhi University campus. And there was a case has been lodged by Elsevier and some publishing giants that why they are allowing this, because of the kind of violation of copyrights. But the court, I think, ordered in favor of the students, because as they are serving a greater, say, sense of, say, education, then though they are not legalized, but they are being tolerable because for the sake of education. So do you think that these kind of, maybe they are not so legalized forms, but do you think there's kind of be a third alternative radical form where these sort of activities can be, say, encouraged for the benefit of the students, mostly from the countries like India, or the countries like, or even some backward countries, where only 20%, 25% people have the access of internet even. Then how come we be able to, say, satisfy their requirements regarding, gathering education from these papers? So do you think that this might be a solution, maybe?
Thank you. So now we have three interventions here. Two are more or less on the question of how to get out of this, what should be the solution. And one specific question has come on UGC care list. And we know that to say the least. Well, I mean, a lot of things we should expect from UGC care list, but they don't fulfill our expectations for whatever reason. And so if by academic standard we mean that you have to have publication UGC care list, well, you have to write and left hand and then submit it to the care list journal and get it published. Otherwise you have to pay $5,000, you know, to get it published. So it's a very peculiar situation. We have these two extremes. In one case, you won't even like to touch that journal, but if you can legitimately, you can get published and get counted. And you have another journal where you would like to publish, but you have to pay a huge amount of money. So people are looking for solutions. Who is going to offer that solution? Mary, yes.
It's not a solution, but I think it's the next stage in the evolution of this situation. So recently, what has been happening is my university has been basically making deals with the open access publishers that the students and faculty in that university will get their open access fees paid. So PLOS, for example, journals we have this deal with, and also Cambridge journals now, open access journals. And I didn't realize this, so recently we submitted a paper and got accepted. We thought we have to pay, and then we were told, oh, you don't have to pay because your university has a deal with the publisher. So if you're at an institution that has some bargaining power, that may replace the need of individual faculty members or researchers to have bargaining power. But then it doesn't completely solve the problem because not all institutions will be able to afford these kinds of deals. But it might mean that it becomes easier for some people, and then if you are co-publishing with someone in that other university or something, then sometimes you can get somehow you can manage. But this is how the problem seems to be getting solved on my side, but I don't know if it's getting solved everywhere. I also want to say that EPW is a great journal. My first publication was just a book review, was in EPW 20 years ago. I wish we had a journal like that in US because it's so widely read. Everyone sees it and it's read across disciplines, and we don't really have a version of that in the US, and I think that's one of the things I always thought was created a lot of intellectual crossover and harmony in the social sciences in India, is EPW.
Yeah, I'm glad that you have mentioned EPW. So I think that EPW, played a tremendous role. Actually, it's in terms of scholarly communication. In fact, that could be a model. But these days, actually, nobody thinks in terms of that kind of journal, where even it's not only non-profit, but now actually they're really struggling for funds because they cannot charge the authors, and advertisements are very limited, only a few advertisements. So they're really struggling for survival because of lack of funds. But EPW could be a good model, even though in terms of impact factor and all that. But of course, it is available only for the social scientists, but not in pure science. Any other take? Yeah.
The alternative model what I have in mind, that is 2D, decoupling promotion from publication. Because this is creating a lot of retraction, lot of predatory publications. India has got the highest number of predatory publishers in the world, and India is now in the 6th position in retraction. Retraction is a very, what to say, academic crime. Your paper is got retracted by the publisher. And sometimes our scholars innocently, fall in the trap because they don't know citation or reference to the retracted paper may also lead to retraction. That simple fact we don't tell them. Second is decolonizing. Why we do not have a national standard publication system after almost 75 years of independence? Why we are not saying only saying Scopus listed in a journal or Web of Science listed journal? Why we are depending on the foreign publisher, not saying DOAJ listed journal? UGC KL list, we don't need that to maintain that kind of list. That is not the role of an organization like UGC to maintain the list of journals. It is not possible for them. They can say simple two things, that Scopus index, Web of Science index, and DOAJ index. Half of the problem will be solved. And third thing is that, as my friend said, that we need to give due importance on the article level metrics, not the journal level metrics. Journal impact factor has no meaning actually. I can cite you or give you number of papers published in very high impact factor journal, not even getting a single citation. And there are a lot of journals, you simply do not know their impact factor, but they are getting very high number of citations because of the quality of the paper. Internet is acting as a level playing factor. Nowadays, anyone can be a publisher. You can upload your paper in any of the open access repositories legally. If your paper is good, people will cite you. Nothing goes unnoticed in an open world. Thank you.
No, to add a little more facts to what Professor Partha has told, one of my colleagues was an editor for one of the prestigious journals in library and information science. She approved the paper. After that, the chief editor writes, please ask the author to cite at least from 5 articles from our journal. Now, the question is, I go a little aggressive. How much citation studies damaged scientific research? Because, for example, examination, it has inherent flaws. Memory test, lottery, everything. And there is dark side, bribing the teachers, selling the question papers like that. So citation studies, if any of the younger students would take up, how much inherent weaknesses it has, how much dark side it has. Okay, I tell you one thing. So all these consortia approaches, planners, these are all deceptive mechanisms introduced by the publishing industry. You know that the more prices they increase, less subscriptions from the universities come down. Then to cover up that again they increase, they got into a death trap. Don't think that consortia is a wonderful idea, because I know, for example, when Jagdish Arora was indexed, then I asked, why don't you put ISI also in that? No, Springer is objecting. It's not allowing ISI because already ISI is a big customer to them. And they see to it, if your organization is paying 1 crore for journals, after joining a consortia, they make it 1.2 crores. And they may claim, right now you have only 100, we will give 400 journal. They may be junk, that's a different issue. Okay. Then again, coming to the honesty of the academicians when it comes to open access movement. I attended one UNESCO IIT Kharagpur joint venture of one conference. Okay. I mean, I feel sad to say this. Okay. They said the universal access to information by UNESCO and other things. And finally, I found that the IIT Kharagpur authorities openly tell, if our faculty publishes in open access journal, we don't consider for promotion. And they join hands to promote open access with UNESCO. I thought, I told them, what kind of a dishonesty is this on IIT Kharagpur point? Then why did you join hands with UNESCO? No answer. Okay. Then another encounter, I met one of the Padma Bhushan, Vibhushan, and with leftist views in NKC. But he was telling, no, we don't accept open access. But I say, you are a left guy, you are promoting the publishing industry. Okay, he was a big guy and no more. But what I say is, recently one of the vice chancellors of a prestigious university, he said that, no, I won't, the vice chancellor thought, no, he can fix the publishing industry and accept his terms of price. Then chemical abstracts guys, they told the vice chancellor, get lost. After that, they stopped, and that is one of the prestigious schools, chemistry. Then later, Vice Chancellor tried to beg them. They said, hey, you don't know how to handle it, get lost. So this one nation, one subscription sounds high, but you cannot tame the publishing industry. That is what I am trying to tell. To answer his question, whether it is a commodity, whether it is being, but what I say is, even in market economy, it is a freak in the market. Because even if somebody produces a safety pin and so sell it for 5 paisa, I think at least producer gets 1 paisa, mediators get 4 paisa. This is the only freak in the market where producer gets nothing. On the other hand, he has to pay. Even in library science, if you have color chart, you have to pay. Okay, like, and physics and other journals, of course, per page you have to pay. Not only other paid, this was the practice even much before all this. So finally that fellow makes, and worst part of it is, in the copyright law, transfer of copyright should be removed. Why they should own the copyright? Okay, they are making money, full stop. And they own the copyright. If I put, technically, legally I can be challenged, and they can file a suit. This is completely against the principles of natural justice. Of course, the entire economy, politics are completely against the principle of natural justice, but that is the sad part of it. But again, one of the questions people say, no, if it is a good journal, it must be a good article. Shall I tell you one thing? The journal's goodness, how quality of the journal is decided by the reviewers of the journal, not by the journal whether it is a commercial or not. I tell you, I went to one of the labs to develop a digital repository. Then they were telling a story. They were doing some highly classified research, and their experiments, they were never successful. They tried many ways. Finally, what they did is, they wrote an article, explained the methodology, and claimed it was successful. And one of the reviewers told, nonsense, we did this experiment, the only way, and we did many other ways, only way to do this is the way. They took that and did the experiment successfully. That means it is the reviewers that matter, not the publisher that matters. But I tell you, with the nexus between the governments and the publishing industry, it takes a long time to defeat them.
So we are at the end of this discussion, and the time is almost like, yeah, we have, we still have some time, and
He raised about the model, publishing model.
yeah, please.
It's of course a good question, but as you clearly mentioned in your question itself, that whether the guerrilla open access, we say it, guerrilla open access like Sci-Hub and all, the way we used to download the papers. This is the first thing, this is not acceptable. So it's like English proverb, you know, nothing unfair in love and war. So then we have to say nothing unethical in teaching and research, something like that, you know. So unethical practice is unethical. Of course, we have to admit it. But even though, in copyright itself, it allows some things, you know, for fair use, for purely academic and research purposes. This is good. Of course, good, and we'll go with that. Now, the alternative model, what we felt, that is, if you just go through all the models, one is, you know, as the traditional way, you just communicate with the publisher or the journal. You know, if it's accepted, that will be reviewed, and finally, you know, that will be accepted and published. You need not to pay anything. Other one is, as Professor Mukhopadhyay mentioned, that the APC charges make it open, maybe a gold path, maybe in the hybrid kind of journal, you know, where your article will be only available on open access and rest are not, rest will be subscription based. So this kind of approach is there, of course. And third one is the green open access, which one, it's in your control, where you can put your manuscript in open repository, open access repository, anyone can get view of that. And it's really, in academic world, it's true that if your work is really good, it will be viewed, it will be used, it will be referred, it will be cited by other researchers. There is no doubt about it. So before the invention of advent of IT or the this kind of citation indexing databases or this kind of metric studies, do you believe that we never published, we never gone through any research? Because Professor Mukhopadhyay, again I am referring him because he only uttered, we know that the publication history, the formal publication history of journal started in 1665. So 400 years back, So that time, since that time, we the researchers, we the academicians, continuing our publishing, continuing our research. So this is the only model what I believe, like the country like us, go for open access in any way. Either open access journal, we are not charging APC, or publish it in institutional repository, or publish it simply through blog, It's also another, communication channel for scholarly writings. That's all.
So the last word from.
Yeah, what actually Mary was saying about that institutional bargaining power and institutional membership kind of thing to the journals. Yeah, China is, almost all the universities is under this particular thing. But in India, IITs probably have it, and ISI or all the, what you call, eminent institutions, or yeah, CSIR and all these things. But the question comes when this our state universities or the institution like us, where your total budget to the higher education of the government of India as well as the state are actually decreasing now. Now if state is not spending, then how it is feasible for us to go for this kind of institutional bargaining to the those Elsevier, mighty Elseviers and mighty Springer nature.
Just one line. I agree with this, and this is also true for a lot of smaller institutions in US and other places, because they don't have the ability to pay those kinds of fees either. So only the big institutions.
Okay, so I think we have almost used up our time, and I think it was an excellent discussion, and the panelists, from their experiences and from their understanding of the issues, you must have noticed that it's very deep, and a lot of issues actually came up, but as usual, we cannot have the last word on this in terms of solution, and but the debate or the contested nature of this scholarly communication has come up well in this discussion. And I don't think that many of us actually engage in this kind of discussion and raising these questions, because now we are almost towards the, what should I say, we are pushed to the wall, so to say, that unless we have something else, then what, only solution could be that, some kind of subversive act, which, at least in terms of getting the articles free of cost, we have certain sites and we have certain sources. So without subscribing the journal, we do get articles. But again, it's not fully satisfactory, because we don't get the very recent articles. But at least, it has solved. So this kind of subversive activities, luckily, they cannot stop. And this publishing industry, no matter how monopoly or how oligopolistic it is, subversive activities will go on, will continue. And that's the hope actually. Thank you very much. Thank you. And